G'day guys, and welcome to another Phil and Jen in the Philippines. I've already done one vlog today, but now I'm doing the second one because the day has moved on. I've done what I had to do in the day, and I thought I'd pass on what happened today, and one of the major reasons I'm back here in Australia, apart from the flies. But before I do, subscribe, tell your friends, notifications, all the normal, everyday things you've got to do. Okay, one of the reasons I came back to Australia, I'll let you know because there's a fabulous lot of brains out there, especially a lot of Aussies tune into this channel, and they might be able to give me some advice. I'll just tell you a little bit of history, and that will give you an indication of why I'm back here and whatever. As you all know, I'm 65 years of age, born in 1957, and persons born in that year and after that, our government's wisdom decided to change or modify the retirement age, and now actual retirement age is 67 years for a person born in 1957, and there is talk about it going up to 70 for people born after that date. So if you were born before 1957, and I think it's 1955 is the age, you could have retired as previously agreed at the age of 65. Having said that, that's fine. I went through life and I retired basically at the age of 60 from the government positions I was holding and whatever, and decided to then join my wife on a semi-permanent to permanent basis. I was making money in Australia by coming back from time to time, as you probably all know, but predominantly I was utilising my retirement savings to set up home in the Philippines, build a house, live happily ever after, and the safety net always was this. Before we go on, just to give you some idea, yes, I do have an asset or assets here, not a huge amount, but it's something I worked for, and I wanted to leave to I have 4 children over here, and I wanted to leave that asset to my 4 children eventually. So I took what liquidity I had to the Philippines, and it was a reasonable amount of money, and I started to set up house. Now, the thinking behind it was, I've only got to get to 65. I wasn't aware, I hadn't done my research, but even when I realised that it was then 67, that was fine, that was okay. I had enough money to fund me through till I was 67. And then as I delved more and more into the quagmire of pensions and whatever, I suppose that's why I am a little bit anti at the moment in regard to government and pensions. The stipulations would change not only with the age, but how you could collect a pension. And at one stage when I came to Australia, I thought I'd make inquiries at the relevant government departments in regard to my pension. And I was informed, well, I've only got to do this. I'm not drawing any form of social security or anything like that. I'll wait until I'm 67 and then I'll return to the Philippines. At which time, apparently since October 2021, when the regulations changed, I was then informed that I more than likely couldn't take my pension overseas. And I found this astounding. And on top of that, to even make application for the pension in this country, I had to reside here for an unbroken period of 2 years before I made the claim. Now this of course threw a spanner in the works as far as my plans were concerned, and that's one of the reasons at 65. There was other reasons, but I had to return home to obtain that pension, and then obviously make application to take that pension overseas, because as it stands at the moment, from what I've been informed, is that if I take that particular pension back to the Philippines and live with my wife and kids over there, 6 weeks after I leave the country, without a particular exemption, the pension will be cut. And of course, once the pension's cut, we go back to the same old situation. I've got to then reside for 2 years before I can make application again. Now, I think this is totally unfair. Yes, I do have an asset here, but it is a home, and it's not an opulent home by any means. And I can't really understand that with this home, I may be able to attain some income, not being a burden to anybody, pay my taxes for that income, and then it goes overseas. But what the government is doing is forcing me into a situation where I sell that just to survive if I have to go overseas. Now, I can't understand that. The government in this country will not pay pensioners of any description a living wage. We're well under the poverty line. And the more important thing is, and the reason I'm looking towards pension, we get a gold card and we get assistance with any health and benefits in the long run. And I'm looking at that more so than the money. But, if I don't obtain the pension, I don't get that. So what they're saying is we won't pay you enough money to live in this country where the rents are absolutely ridiculous. And there's a number of things I'd love to talk to you about after coming back to Australia and how it's deteriorated in the last 12 or so months. But having said that, that's another subject. So if I can get my head around it, they won't pay me enough money to live in this country as a pensionable amount. There's all these strings attached to it. And yet, if I choose to go to a country where I can live on the pension, which a lot of you guys have done, not an opulent life, I'm still drawing the same amount of money as I would here, but they won't allow it. Obviously, they don't want the money taken out of the country, but hold on, I thought it was my money. I thought, my pension was to do as I please. What if I was a gambler and I was gambling online overseas? How do they stop that? So it became, in my mind, totally and utterly unfair. I'm since battling it, and I've been down, and the bureaucracy at the moment that's going on in Australia. I won't even mention the fact that I now have to prove to the Australian government that my wife is living overseas, never been here to the country, she does exist, etc., etc., etc. Now, it's all right for you guys and everyone to turn around and say, oh, but that's to stop fraud and whatever. For the miserable amount of money they're giving me, really, I'm going to defraud the government? And everything is so cut and dry. No, these are the rules, these are the rules, these are the rules. And I said, well, they weren't the rules when I was growing up. You've just changed them in midstream. So that's the situation with me. There was a lot of things I had to consider before I returned here. And as I said to a lot of you, there's no way in the world I would have left the Philippines. Good, bad, or indifferent, the Philippines had become virtually a home to me, and I was very, very comfortable there. But of course, you can't work, you can't earn any decent money in the Philippines. So, I was relying on, like you Americans, your SS pension or SSS, whatever you call it, and my pension, because I got of age, I paid my taxes. There would just be the amount of money that would make me comfortable now that I'm set up in a foreign country. I don't think that's unfair. Maybe a lot of people do. But for me to do one of two things, dispose of the asset here and then go back to the Philippines and have nothing to give the 4 children I have here that I worked for. I paid my taxes on the house. I've done everything. I've kept it up to date, but they won't let me retain it to live. Or I can bring my wife Jennifer over and a couple of kids over, but even that is a $30,000, $40,000 exercise to bring them over. And then I've got to guarantee that I can sustain that group of people for a minimum of 12 months. And I've got to have the money in the bank. And so it leaves me very little options about keeping the only asset I've managed to keep over this lifetime. I'd helped my family out. I'd helped Jennifer's family out and whatever. I just find this totally unfair at the moment. But I'm fighting it, as I always do. I'll let you know how things go. They were the catch-22s I had. That was one of the reasons I came over, for those who inquire via the website. It's just an absolute melee over here at the moment in regard to things like pensions and social security and Centrelink and God knows what. Even a registration of a foreign partner is complicated and time-consuming. So this is Australia today. I'll review this because I'm not sure whether even I understand what I've just said, but if you see it, I've put it on. Remember, subscribe. If you would, I'm sure I'm not the only one with these problems. Maybe you guys out there have been through it or can suggest something to me. I'd only be too happy to listen. But cheers for now. It's Phil and Jen in the Philippines, and Phil's in Australia and doesn't know whether he's going to get back to the Philippines anytime soon or get Jen here. or let's go back to the status quo and I just pack my bags and go home and work it out from there. Cheers for now.